The United States is commonly looked at as one of the world's leaders in technology, economic development, and quality of life. Our booming cities and industrial zones provide new challenges for firefighters across the nation. For instance, changes in structural building practices and an increased use of chemicals in product development add new hazards to the jobs of firefighters. With these changes in our environment, one would think that there would be more of a call now than ever before for widespread paid firefighting forces. Surprisingly, volunteer firefighters are far more common than most people realize. In fact, according to the National Volunteer Fire Council, or NVFC, volunteers comprise 73% of the firefighters in the United States. Of the total estimated 1,096,250 total firefighters across the country, 800,050 are volunteers. Also, the majority of fire departments in the United States are volunteer. Of the total 30,543 fire departments in the country, 2,018 are composed of all paid firefighters, 1,582 are mostly paid firefighters, 5,271 are mostly volunteer, and 21,671 are all volunteer. Although most familiar to rural residents, fire departments made up strictly of volunteers can also be found in urban settings where shift workers can help fill the demands generated by daytime incidents. Many of the cities that do not have the volunteer manpower needed to respond to daytime calls have opted to take on a hybrid department structure. In this, they hire firefighters to staff their stations during the day and run with volunteers during the evenings and nights when their membership has returned home from work. When one thinks about volunteers in general, it is a common misconception that these people have lots of heart but little training. However, make no mistake, volunteer firefighters are well trained to do their jobs. This is due in part to the seriousness of the duties performed by the volunteers and their desire to make sure that everyone comes home from a call in the same condition in which they responded.
Volunteer firefighters take training very serious for serious reasons. One of our captains likes to say, "Train like your life depends on it," and it does. With 130 volunteers that live and work in and around League City, we take great pride in providing fire protection. We take our job very seriously because someone's life or home may depend on us, and the thought of losing the battle is unacceptable to us.
Prior to becoming members of the department, cadets must first complete 3 months of training that is both physically and mentally demanding. This provides the cadets with an opportunity to determine if volunteering for our type of work is really for them. Those who complete the academy are then put on a 1-year probationary period where their actions are closely monitored by the more experienced members of the department. In addition, this also allows the current membership an opportunity to identify the strengths and weaknesses of their potential station members.
Although training and membership qualifications may vary from department to department based on situational needs, there are national guidelines that are commonly recognized by most departments. Most departments seek ISO certification and comply with National Fire Protection Association or NFPA guidelines. ISO provides an independent verification of the service level of the department, and the NFPA sets the standards used by all professionals in the fire industry, whether they are paid or not. To promote the guidelines set by these documents, most organizations that provide grants to departments across the United States will designate that a certain ISO certification level or NFPA guidelines must be followed before departments are eligible to receive funds. As with rural areas, economic factors are common reasons that most communities have volunteer fire departments.
With most cities in the country that are growing very fast, the idea of a full-time paid fire department comes with a heavy price tag that League City is not yet able to support with their current tax.
Those cities are often still responsible for funding gear, vehicles, water systems, and stations in which to house everything. Their costs are much lower than they would be if they had to pay the salaries of the personnel and were not eligible for grants. According to the NVFC, services contributed by volunteer firefighters save municipalities across the country an estimated $37.2 billion per year. Despite the economic advantages to their communities, volunteer fire departments across the country are seeing a decline in the number of volunteers and the length of their service. The NVFC states that the number of volunteer firefighters in the United States has declined more than 10% since 1983. Additionally, according to the NVFC, major factors contributing to the decline include increased time demands, more vigorous training standards, and the proliferation of two-income families whose members do not have time to volunteer.
We've noticed that the average length of membership in our department is now hovering between 5 and 6 years, with only about 37% of our members having more than 5 years of experience. A small percentage of new members find that this duty requires more of a time commitment than they anticipated, and they drop out immediately. Likewise, a large majority of our academies are made up of individuals in their 20s and 30s. Because of their current stages in life, this group will often face increased family duties and career changes. Unfortunately, this is often caused as a priority shift and will limit their ability to meet department needs.
Retention of volunteers is something that all volunteer departments have to struggle with. In order to attempt to counteract this issue, some departments have turned to creative incentives.
One way League City helps retain volunteers is to provide a pension plan for their members. After serving a minimum of 15 years in the department, they become vested. When they reach the retirement age, they can start collecting a pension. The city also helps by providing our fire department with top-of-the-line equipment needed to do the job and get it done well.
Regardless of any decline, there are still a significant number of volunteer firefighters in the United States. So what really drives these men and women?
We are citizens that want to help our community and contribute to the well-being of our city. We complete hundreds of hours of training every year to stay on top of our game. We give up many hours away from our family and friends to provide fire protection and rescue operations to people that we don't even know. We don't do it for fame or riches. It's about helping our fellow man in time of need.
Just like any other volunteer, firefighters find a need in society that isn't being otherwise fulfilled, and they give of themselves freely while asking for nothing in return. So take a minute today to thank a volunteer firefighter. They just may be the one coming to your rescue tomorrow.